Right now, I'd like you to meet a young lady, a very lovely young lady that I really think has what it takes to be around for a long, long time to come. I'd like you to meet Miss Linda Ronstadt.
Feeling better now that we're through. Feeling better 'cause I'm over you. Learn that lesson and let your scar. Now I see how you really are. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good. I'm gonna say it again. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good.
Here's a gal who really sings great. We had her on the show last year, and she was sensational.
My first guest occupies a prominent place in the top 40 record charts, and she has a big one right now.
Linda Ronstadt is one of the really great talents in country music.
Would you welcome, please, Linda Ronstadt.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Linda Ronstadt.
Linda could literally sing anything. I don't think anybody has tried more different styles and nailed it than Linda has. There's not that many people that can pull off new wave music and rock and those beautiful country ballads. Her range is huge.
She decided what she wanted to do. More important, what she was authentic at doing. And they always told her, no, you can't do this, you'll ruin your career. She did it anyway.
Someone once asked me why people sing. I answered that they sing for many of the same reasons birds sing. They sing for a mate, to claim their territory, or simply to give voice to the delight of being alive in the midst of a beautiful day. They sing so the subsequent generations won't forget what the current generations endured, or dreamed, or delighted in. There are a lot of really good singers out in the world, a lot of better singers than I am. What I did was different from other singers. I did a whole lot of different kinds of material. People would think that I was trying to reinvent myself, but I never invented myself to start with. I just kind of popped out into the world. My mom grew up in Michigan. Her dad was an inventor. He was the third to Thomas Edison in a number of useful inventions in the 50s. He invented the electric stove, the electric toaster, the thermostat for Westinghouse. But my grandmother had Parkinson's disease, and he spent all his money trying to find a cure. And that's what I have now. My mom was really smart too. She wanted to study math and physics, and the University of Arizona was really good for that. So she came out to Tucson where she met my father. My great-grandfather, Friedrich Ronstadt, came from Germany to Mexico in 1839. My father's father, Federico, moved to Tucson when he was 14 to work as a wagon maker. But his true passion was music. So he started the Club Filarmónico Tucsonense. He was the one who wrote the arrangements and taught everybody how to play their instruments. He was like the music man. If you wanted to serenade your sweetheart, you'd get my grandfather's band to go. And if you had a wedding or a funeral, well, they'd show up for that. First time that my mother ever saw my dad, he was riding his horse up the steps of her sorority house. My dad had a lovely baritone tenor voice and knew a lot of beautiful Mexican love songs that were rooted in his childhood. He serenaded my mother underneath her balcony. She fell big for him.
I'm a rambler, I'm a gambler, I'm a long way from home. If you people don't like me, you can leave me alone.
I grew up in Tucson on the last 10 acres of my grandfather's cattle ranch. We were very isolated, so if you wanted entertainment, you kind of had to make your own. There was a lot of music going on in that house. Some of it came in through the radio. That was my best friend in the world. We had amazing radio in Tucson because it was really close to the border. We could get the Louisiana hayride. American standards. But my grandmother and grandfather were classical music devotees. So I would go over to their house on Saturday morning and listen to a live broadcast from the Metropolitan Opera. I'd come home and my dad would be playing Mexican songs on the piano. My mom would be playing some Gilbert and Sullivan piece. My sister loved Hank Williams. She loved country music.
I can't help it if I'm still in love with you.
My brother would be singing really high soprano. He was in a world-class boys choir, and he was their soloist.
She wanted to know how to sing that way, so I taught her. So she learned about vibrato and all that kind of stuff when she was like 5, 6 years old.
We learned so much about singing from each other. It was completely incorporated into what we did. We sang at the dinner table, we sang in the car, we sang with our hands in the dishwater. I thought Spanish was this magical musical language. When I was growing up, I thought people sang in Spanish and spoke in English. If you spoke Spanish on the playground, you'd be punished. You weren't allowed to do it. My sister and brother and I eventually formed a little group. We called ourselves the New Union Ramblers. We thought that sounded folky. Bobby Kimmel was a guitar player that I met in Tucson. He wrote songs about his own life.
I remember them being one of the best vocal groups I had ever heard.
Bobby joined our family group, and then he and I used to play as a duet sometimes. We played little clubs in Tucson, but there wasn't very much opportunity for us there. At some point, reality stepped in. My sister had 3 kids. And then my brother went to work for the police department. Bobby wanted to earn some money playing music, so he went off to California. And I was the last man standing.
I went to LA with the intention of forming a band. When I saw the quality of the singers that were out there, I started writing to Linda saying, if you come out, we could form a band and get a record deal.
I knew they had more clubs to play in Los Angeles.
I was telling her, this is kind of an iffy thing. You know, you might starve to death, or you might find yourself washing dishes and waiting tables before you ever get discovered. She says, I'm willing to take the chance.
I was 18 years old. We had a house on the beach for $80 a month in Santa Monica. We split the rent 3 ways. It was just great. It was right on the beach.
Once she got there, we got to work right away, and we used to practice every day.
Bobby introduced me to a really good guitar player named Kenny Edwards, and we formed a little band. We called ourselves the Stone Ponies.
Look out your window, the rain is turning into snow. So the time is.
We started playing little beatnik dives in strange pizza parlors, wherever we could get a job. There was the trip where I heard this band called The Byrds. Had a light show and a lot of acid tripping kind of stuff going on. The Whiskey A Go-Go was very rock and roll. I heard the Doors there, and I thought, well, they'd be really a hit band if they get rid of their singer.
Go, love, open up the door, you see the wind's not.
There was the Ash Grove. That was where you go for authentic folk music. So I first heard Ry Cooder.
Have you seen that vigilante man?
Ry Cooder was then and now the most amazing guitar player I've ever heard. I knew they had good musicians in Los Angeles, but this guy's really something. So I thought, I'm staying here. I'm not going back to Tucson to live.
All over the land.
She came to Los Angeles at a time when the LA rock and roll scene was in gear and was going. Because see, after the Byrds did their thing with Mr. Tambourine Man, then the whole damn thing broke loose. And all the record companies went scurrying around like headless chickens trying to figure out what to do. Who can sing folk rock and how can we define what this thing is going to be?
There was a lot of cross-pollination that started happening in the mid-'60s. You know, country music and folk music and rock music started commingling and blending, and you would get all these hybrids.
The Troubadour, just a few blocks from Hollywood Boulevard, is known as an avant-garde cafe. It's the favorite of Hollywood's young and young in heart.
The Troubadour was where everybody went to hang out and to be noticed. If you wanted to make yourself known to the record community at large, you'd go to the Troubadour, play open mic night.
I can't even name all the great songwriters that came through there. I mean, it was Laura Nyro, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Tim Hardin, Chris Christopherson, Rick Nelson, Elton John, Jackson Browne. It was just week after week of amazing, game-changing songwriters.
Some of them were dreamers, and some of them were fools who were making plans and thinking of the future.
I mean, you tried to get a gig at the Troubadour. You wanted to play the Troubadour. All kinds of industry people hung around in the bar.
The Troubadour is important because that's where you get seen. It was the place to play. It's like the minor leagues in baseball. This was your chance. This was your great chance.
The Troubadour was a bustling place. You know, they had a hootenanny night where new artists would come and sing a few songs, and I used to go to every hootenanny night to see if there was anybody really talented.
The Hoot, the Monday night open mic hootenanny, where you'd wait and get on the list and you'd go up there and sing your new song.
Get a head of steam on, shovel in the coal. Stick your head out the window, watch those drivers. Hoistings on Funegel. What's that I hear now ringing in my ear?
You got 2 or 3 songs. If you were no good, you probably didn't last the second song because people were, hey, get off. And maybe not even the first song.
I heard a song called Different Drum by this bluegrass group called the Greenbrier Boys. It was written by Mike Nesmith, who was eventually going to join the Monkees.
Do you cry and moan and say it will work out? But honey child, I've got my doubts. You can't see the forest for the trees. So don't get me wrong, it's not that I knock it, it's just that I'm not in the market for a boy who wants to love only me.
We got an immediate response from managers and people who are interested in our career.
Herb Cohen was managing Frank Zappa. We had heard that he had been a soldier of fortune. He may have killed somebody. He was a badass, but he was established, and he immediately said, I can get you a record deal. We recorded a few things, just the 3 of us. Then he took those to the people in power and said, I want to record these guys. Capitol said, okay. We signed papers, and we were off and running.
So we recorded it with a mandolin and a couple of acoustic guitars. And the record company didn't like it. And so they said, well, come back, we want to recut the song.
Suddenly, everything changed in the studio.
They had a bunch of strings in there, and it was an orchestra session. I went, wait a minute, this is the way I thought about the song. I said, I don't want to put it on the record because that wasn't the way I originally envisioned it.
You and I travel to the beat of a different drum. How can't you tell by the way I run? Every time you make eyes at me.
It was a good thing they didn't listen to me because it was a huge hit.
I'm driving down the road, in my car, listening to KTKT radio, and all of a sudden she's singing different drum. I said, wait a minute.
I loved her voice from the first time I heard her. I was a freshman in college. Stone Pony's different drum. Yeah, baby.
It was just like to pull back the covering of a fully developed vocal style.
Yes, and I ain't saying you ain't pretty. Oh, I'm saying I'm not ready.
Most of the time, as a critic, you're sitting there saying, we don't give the artist a plus for this and a minus for this. This is kind of good, that's not so good. Bang. It was like a home run.
We were out on this tour, and Herbie Cohen comes to my hotel room and says, I need to tell you that when we get back to LA, the band is breaking up. Everybody said, I don't know about you two guys, but we want the girl singer.
The record company wanted to develop me as a solo artist. So Kenny decided to go off to India and find a guru and learn to meditate. And Bobby started a folk club in LA called McCabe's. And I was left with what in the world to sing. I was by myself, harmony singer with no material.
The remarkable thing about the Stone Pony days was she had the nerve to leave a male band after it already had a hit and go on her own.
Would you welcome, please, Miss Linda Ronstadt. Ronstadt. Did anyone ever suggest that that isn't the most musical name in the world? And maybe you ought to change it to Linda Marlowe, or is there a Linda Marlowe? Or?
It gives people, I mean, once they learn how to pronounce my name, that leaves them free for all kinds of variations. Lynn Campbell once called me Linda Bedstead.
I remember you when you were nothing but a little stone pony.
Oh, yeah?
I don't have any idea what that means. I know that you were part of a group, right?
Let's see, how do I explain this on television and not get yelled at?
Oh, maybe you don't.
I think I don't.
Oh, yeah? Oh, is it an inside meaning? It has a meaning like a lot of old rock?
It has a lot of different old folks.
Love will abide. Take things in stride. Sounds like good advice, but there's no one in my side, and time washes clean love's wounds unseen. That's what someone told me, but I don't know what it means, 'cause I've done everything I know to try and make you mine, and I think it's gonna hurt me for a long, long time, 'cause I've done everything I know to try and make you mine. I think I'm gonna love you for a long, long time.
I met her in the Troubadour. She had this hit called Long, Long Time. Apparently she knew who I was based on a record I'd made with Ricky Nelson. She said, I like that band you put together for Rick Nelson. Could you do that for me?
She's got everything she needs. She's an artist. She don't look back.
Herbie Cohen was the manager when I met her. He gave me these tickets to Hawaii for the Capitol Records convention. Linda and I show up at San Francisco Airport to fly to Honolulu, and lo and behold, there was the FBI to arrest us for receiving stolen property. Turns out Herbie had bought the tickets in the lobby of the building from some guy, you know, probably for 25 cents on the dollar, and they were hotter than a $2 pistol. So we spent the day in jail. She fired Herbie and asked me to fill in.
I don't want your lonely mansion with the tears.
I was walking through the Troubadour one night on my way to the bathroom. This band Shiloh got up and did my exact version of Silver Threads and Golden Needles.
Silver threads and golden needles.
I just went, what? That's, you know, it's that solo. I thought, God, what? You know, I was appalled that anyone would actually sit down with one of my records and learn the solo off, you know, like a Led Zeppelin record. And I heard the drummer, and I thought he was really good.
The drummer was a guy named Don Henley.
Linda's first solo album came out in '69, and I moved to LA in June of 1970. So my timing was pretty good.
She had a bunch of dates back east, and we needed to put the band together quickly. So I hired him for $250 a week.
Rescue me. I want you in my arms. Rescue me. I need your tender charms 'cause I'm lonely.
I knew who she was because I had her album. I listened to that album 100 times. She could seem vulnerable and very feminine, but when she opened her mouth to sing, everything got different. You know, it was just incredible. You knew that there was a very solid core and a very determined woman.
Just saw her walking past me in the Troubadour, and she looked so cute. I just grabbed her by the hand, and I said, I think you should cook me dinner. And she said, okay, and gave me her phone number. And so I called her a couple days, and I said, well, you gonna cook me dinner? She goes, sure, come on over. I came on over, and she made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I fell in love with her. Took her home, and the next day I said, listen, let's go get your stuff. I think you can live here with me.
I got a feeling called the blues. Oh, Lord, sister, baby, say goodbye.
John David Souther and Linda Ronstadt. They were a hot couple.
All I do is sit and cry. Oh, Lord, it lasts long day. You said goodbye.
JD had a musical duo with a guy named Glenn Fry.
It do me, it do you.
He was my best friend and first songwriting partner. We really did nothing but just listen to music and play guitars and try to write songs and then go to the Troubadour.
Glenn Fry played pretty good guitar. So I went and talked to Glenn and said, do you want to do this tour with me? He said it'd be really cool. He'd never been on the road before.
Glenn Fry and I shared a $12 hotel room with 2 twin beds in it. It was a very modest tour. I mean, I remember being in station wagons.
Rooming together. Don and Glenn each discovered that the other was a good singer and songwriter.
And that's when they decided to get together and form a band. That band became the Eagles.
They wished us well. You know, John was very supportive, Linda was supportive, and they basically said, just go for it. We didn't have much success with Desperado. You know, it was the record company didn't know what to do with it. And then Linda made it into a classic.
Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Come down from your fences and open the gate. It may be raining, but there's a rainbow above you.
knew the Neil Young tour was coming, and I thought this will be perfect for Linda because she had sung backup on his big hit, Heart of Gold. So I called Neil's manager and I said, listen, Linda's the right opening act for this. You got to help me out. And they said, well, Neil's going to go out alone.
I wanna live, I wanna give.
Lo and behold, like a week later, they called me. He said, Neil's done a few dates in Canada, and it's getting him too tired. He now wants an opening act, and you're it.
I never give.
Linda was quite reluctant at the time. She was so worried about the idea of playing a huge hockey arena tour at that point in her career. But we persuaded her that this would be a good thing. You would occasionally get somebody yell, "What do you want, Neil?" You know, but by the time the tour got going, she was holding her own.
I've been cheated, been mistreated. When will I be loved? I've been put down, I've been pushed around. When will I be loved? When I find a new man that I want for mine, he always breaks my heart in two. It happens every time.
Here's Linda, who I'd never seen live before. Big stage, sold out, huge place. She comes out there and starts singing, and that voice filled this arena where I had seen concerts for a long time. Nobody filled this arena with a voice like Linda Ronstadt. And she just killed it. She slaughtered this crowd who didn't come to see her, but they sure left knowing who she was.
We did 78 dates in 90 days. We played before 18 to 20,000 people every night.
We got to Houston, and there was this new girl singer. Her name's Emmy Lou.
It was 1973, during the one tour I did with Graham.
Calliope calling, children are falling in line to ride on the merry-go-round.
Emmy started singing in 3 notes. The entire place was dead quiet. And it was like they'd started Mass or something. And she was beautiful, this girl with long hair and big brown eyes. And I thought, oh, she's doing exactly what I'm doing. But she's doing it better. And then for a minute I thought, well, I can get jealous. And then I won't be able to enjoy her singing. Or I can just become a slobbering, drooling fan like the rest of the people in the club and hope that maybe I can get her to sing with me. So I chose the latter as one of the best decisions I ever made. And Emmy and I became immediate music and social friends.
Linda had a lot to do with lifting me up at a very, very low time in my life. I had been kind of on my way working with Graham Parsons. I thought I'd found my voice. I had found something I loved to do, singing with him. On the road to getting himself straight, he was drinking a lot less. He was loving the work. We loved singing together. We had a record we had just made. And apparently someone showed up with heroin, which he hadn't done in a while, and it killed him. It was devastating, you know, to lose him like that. It was Linda who stepped up as a friend, and we had just met each other. She brought me out to LA, had me stay at her house, and she talked about me to everybody. I said how great I was, and genuinely loved my singing, genuinely made me feel like I had something to offer at a very low time in my life.
Save me, free me from my heart this time. Well, the train
Linda was always very tight with her girlfriends. They sang together, they shared music together, she was supportive of me. I was writing songs and hoping, you know, to make my own record. But of course, Linda was, you know, really coming into her own and starting to be really successful. I think a songwriter doing their songs is different than a singer doing their songs. Some people prefer the songwriter doing them. Some people prefer Linda doing them. But Lose Again, she definitely made into a bigger song. Because I couldn't sing it like that. I mean, Linda came out and turned it into this power ballad. Back then, there wasn't competition with women. So I think, you know, women, there weren't that many of us either. So I think there was a certain amount of banding together to sort of share our woman part of it.
This is a song off our new album. It's about a real special place called Home. It's a Carla Bonoff song.
I had made a demo of Home, and we sent it off to Bonnie, just a complete long shot, and she decided to record it.
Traveling at night, the headlights were bright, and soon the sun came through the trees. Around the next bend, the flowers will send the sweet smell of my home in the breeze.
Linda and I are like sisters, around the same age, and we were coming up and had the same mutual other musician friends and band members, and you know, we was a community of artists. It wasn't sexually divided between just the women and men. We weren't thinking in terms of that.
Linda and Bonnie Raitt were two of the first women that I was able to see as a young journalist and study the way they operated in this community. And we're going to move into this world where we're running bands with guys in them, but we can also look after each other.
I said, if I can have it on my terms and you understand I'm not going to be told how to dress or what music to make, great. We were all throwing away all those conventions, you know?
The rock and roll culture is so male-dominated, and it also seems to be dominated by sort of a hostility against women, you know, that this sort of, this sort of sexual identity that is sort of used as a weapon against the populace, you know, and women in particular, and that everyone identifies with it. And it's sort of sad to me because what happens is that rock and roll stars tend to end up isolating themselves more and more and more, you know, thereby increasing their own feelings of alienation and anxiety, and they wonder why they're so miserable, you know. That's really when they turn to drugs and destroy themselves, you know, and it's just very silly. It just seems very silly. They lose the ability to focus on themselves as a person, you know, rather than as an image, you know, and that's very dangerous, I think. And there are always a lot of people around them, managers and scene makers, you know, groupies and whatever, that are willing to indulge them in anything they want, you know, and it weakens them, you know, it weakens them as people, and eventually weakens them as musicians.
I've been walked by the rain, driven by the snow, drunk and dirty. Don't you know that I'm still willing? Out on the road, late last night, I seen my pretty Alice in every headlight. Alice, Alice. And I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari, to Hatshepsut to Totem Park, driven every kind of rig that's ever been made.
I was in New York and somebody said, you have to go and see this girl. She's amazing. She's one of the best singers you'll ever hear. She's brilliant. She's incredibly great looking. She sings barefoot and will knock you out in every respect. And she did.
White sand wine, and you show me a sign, and I'll be willing.
I was running the Beatles record label, Apple. When Apple started to fall apart and the Beatles were breaking up and all of that, I went to America, and there I was being a manager.
I wanted to go back to work as a record producer, so I suggested Linda go and meet with Peter, which we did, and he agreed to manage her.
There was a high bar there. Peter Asher had hung around with the Beatles. He expected to make records that are huge successes. And he was poised to do that with Linda, and Geffen was, ready to be the record company that would be there.
I started Asylum Records and signed Jackson Browne, and then started signing other artists, and it turned into what it did. And I knew when I saw Linda in the Stone Ponies that she was going to make it, and she was going to make it as a solo artist, and I knew she was going to be a big star. She didn't think so. She had very little confidence in those days. Linda was feeling like she wasn't good enough to be on Asylum Records. I said to her that that was crazy.
I'm never really satisfied with what I do. And lots of times I hear that I did something wrong, and it bothers me. It can ruin my day, really.
Linda never thought she was as good as she was. And that is an interesting paradox, because she's confident about her ideas, but not about herself and not about her singing. My involvement as a producer with Linda came when she was having trouble finishing the album that became Don't Cry Now. And that's when we decided that the next album I would produce was Hard Like a Wheel.
Some say heart is just like a wheel. When you bend it, you can't mend it.
The McGarrigle sisters, who were these two Canadian sisters, they were in an odd category. They didn't fit in pop music, they didn't fit in folk music, they didn't fit anywhere except they fit in my heart. I just heard Hard Like a Wheel, then I went, I have to sing it.
When harm is done, no love can be won. I know it happens frequently, but I can't.
Linda has the ability to hear a song and claim it. You claim it as your own as a singer. If you love it like that, you get inside it. You become it.
But my love for you is like a sinking ship, and my heart is on that ship out in mid-ocean.
Hard Like a Wheel, she discovered that song, brought it to me, and I loved it. I thought it was beautiful, but I was also thinking in terms of we should make some hits.
Feeling better now that we're through. Feeling better 'cause I'm over you.
I'm a ballad singer. I like to sing ballads best, but we needed some up-tempo songs for the record. And as an afterthought, I had this song that we used to close the show.
No good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good. I'm gonna say it again. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good. Baby, you're no good.
She knew and loved the song. I knew and loved the song. And we decided to do a version of that song.
Well, I broke the
I stayed up all night assembling this very complicated, intricate, layered guitar piece. We worked very long into like the next afternoon. And that's when Linda turned up and didn't like it. She said, oh, I don't like it. It sounds like the Beatles, which it did sound like the Beatles. But in the end, she came around and said, you know what, I was wrong. It's great.
Every song that I sing has a face that I sing it to, you know. And so when something happens to me, it's really funny. I mean, I know so many songs. When something happens to me, the song will occur at the same time. I'll think, oh, this song or that song, you know. And if it's a song I can sing, then I'll have to sing it. You know, I'll just burn to sing it. I can't not sing it.
I passed you on the street, and my heart fell at your feet. I can't help it if I'm still in love with you.
He would make the assumption that I was choosing the songs that we were doing on these records, or that I was working out the arrangements, or this, that, and the other. And I would have to keep explaining that it was Linda and me in that order.
In love with you.
My sister used to play all the Hank Williams records, so I thought, I can do that.
As I brushed your arm, stood so close to you.
Linda knew a good song, and she knew why it was good, and better than that, she knew how to sing it better than you could sing it.
When you become that sharp of a song stylist, you get authorship in a certain way.
I consider her a real auteur. She didn't write songs, but she made songs happen the way she wanted to hear them.
Help it if I'm still in love with you.
I can't help it if I'm still in love with you. It was a hit on the country charts. You're No Good was a hit on both the R&B chart and the pop chart. I became the first artist to have a hit on all three charts at the same time.
Heart Like a Wheel was a huge turning point for her.
The avalanche of success was hitting everywhere. She was at the forefront of a kind of pop stardom that hadn't happened at that point. But people didn't notice the difficulty of being a woman, trailblazing, and having the success of a Mick Jagger.
Now I had gigs like in big sporting arenas, you know, stadiums and stuff like that.
I knew the name of every arena in the country. We got a gig tonight at the Spectrum in Philly. We'll be at the Forum. Gig tomorrow night at the Garden. That's where we played. She was selling them all out.
She was very good. Audience loved her. Records sold. She was on an uphill swing all the time.
When we did that tour together, we'd take turns closing and opening. You know, try following Linda Ronstadt every night.
I went to go see her at the Universal Amphitheater when she was wearing her Boy Scouts outfit, and it was just rocking.
Linda was able to be really feminine and sexy in this world of men and somehow hold on to herself and do that and use that in the best possible way.
There was a lot of dudes running around the stages then, you know, but we were on the road with Linda and killing it. She was killing every night.
I know they liked my singing, and I know they were proud of what they were doing, but still in rock and roll, the idea that you're actually working for a chick singer, in their way, they sort of saw it as not as cool as if they were their own rock and roll band and they were just all the guys.
There weren't a lot of women musicians, so it was always a band of guys, you know. There weren't women bass players and women guitar players, and sometimes some of these guys were tough.
I got a lot tougher and more foul-mouthed. I used to swear a lot. I mean, I used to talk like a truck driver. When I think about the way I used to talk, I'm shocked. Without having any other girls along on the road, just automatically, you start to imitate them.
Linda was never comfortable being on the road, but obviously she did her job, and part of her loved it. Who wouldn't love it? But I think there was another part of her that went, you know, this doesn't feel right.
If I were going to choose something to do, it would not be to stand up in front of a lot of people. But I love to sing. I love to sing. I love music. So at some point, you do whatever you have to do music.
She would confess to me that if she saw people in the front row, right, and somebody leans over and says something to the person next to them, she thought they were saying, you know, she's the worst singer I've ever heard. I don't like this. She really believed that.
You get on the bus at night, card game going on, everybody blasting music or everyone else drinking, you know, a lot of drugs around. A lot of people would go on stage completely hammered, completely fucking hammered.
Everybody was up at night, and when the gig ended, you don't go home and have milk. It was kind of the nighttime danger, fun part about not having to go to bed. You know, Keith Richards can do it, so can I.
Linda's thing was diet pills.
She went through a phase, mostly taking speed and not eating and being super skinny.
It seemed like it was so hard to be out there day after day after day and to try to get up the energy to sort of do that when you were just wrung out from the sense of being dislocated from place. I was with a bunch of people that were basically earnest and basically honest, and the kind of paranoia that was introduced by drugs, it was so destructive in our ability to communicate with each other. And it really saddened me. And then at some point, we all just stopped.
I feel so bad, I got a worried mind. I'm so lonesome all the time. Since I left my baby behind on Blue Bayou, saving nickels, saving dimes, working till the sun don't shine, looking forward to happier times on Blue Bayou.
When Rolling Stone was ready to put Linda Ronstadt on the cover, that was her absolute peak up till then. Generally, it was a very male-oriented, denim-clad warrior cover. So here comes Linda Ronstadt, and she and Annie Leibovitz put together this photo session that was like no other cover that had been on Rolling Stone before. She was honest and opened her heart. She said, "This gets lonely, and I don't know where it ends up. It's an emotional journey, and I'm happy that I brought this kind of joy. But you know what? When I'm here alone in this Malibu home that looks very cozy, it's lonely."
There's a lot of show business people down here, you know. It's not my style exactly.
Where did you live before?
Nowhere, really. I was on the road, you know, for about 10 years, and I didn't exactly have a home.
Sing the national anthem here at Dodger Stadium. Miss Linda Ronstadt.
I remember my dad was watching her at the game. She sang the national anthem,
what so proudly we hailed at the twilight.
All of a sudden, there she is. She'd come in the limo straight to the restaurant from the game to have something to eat. My parents had a small restaurant on Melrose Avenue across the street from what was then KHJ Radio, which was the radio station in the day. Lindy walked in, and my dad was wearing a shirt that we call in Mexico a guayabera, and it has 4 pockets and it's white. And she said, "This is a good place," because he's wearing the shirt my dad wears.
A lot of the people who hung out at the Troubadour also ate at Lucy's. Lucy was very, shall we say, loose with the check now and again if we were on hard times.
Our customers were not just the soon-to-be celebrities of the industries, they were the old guard of Los Angeles. I mean, you're talking old school money. There was a big communal table that my father used to sit everybody at. So you'd sit with policemen, you'd sit with firemen, sometimes you'd sit with an actor, sometimes you'd sit, a football player. You never had any idea who you'd sit with. What happened was Linda had decided that she wanted to change the 8-track because she wanted to hear something else. So she had to step up on this little wine rack. And at that moment, the governor, Jerry Brown, comes in that room and he sees her. And it was like, wow, who is she? So my father went and he sat them together. And, well, he fell in love with her. There was no question about that.
Jerry likes passionate music. He likes passionate music, passionate women. You know, that's his deal. We had a really good time together.
He went out to run for president for the last couple of months, and hadn't been for the fact that I got to see him on TV every night, I forgot what he looked like. So, but he came back yesterday. He's going to make it all better now. So he told me anyway. I've yet to see. My boyfriend's back and you're gonna be in trouble.
Did you have much of a problem when you were with Jerry Brown, people expecting you to have political views along the lines of Governor Brown's? Whereas, I mean, you're a singer, he's a politician.
Our relationship was completely personal. It wasn't political at all. So, you know, he did politics, I did music.
Right.
It's easy to separate that.
Now, you went to South Africa recently. Did you receive criticism for going there?
As far as I was concerned, it was just a gig. I don't think that if you disagree with the policies of the government, which I do very definitely disagree with the policies of the South African government, I don't think that's enough of a reason not to go and play music there. If I did that, I wouldn't be able to play in the United States because I don't agree with their policies about nuclear power or nuclear warfare. I mean, my God, we've got this person running the country, you know, that I completely disagree with. If I decided that I wasn't going to play where attitudes of racism prevailed, I certainly couldn't play in Australia or England or lots of places in the United States, a lot of places in the American South, or Boston, which is extremely racist. I went to South Africa. It has a fascist, repressive government. I'm very interested in the culture down there.
You just got finished talking. You say, why does anyone think I'm controversial? Do you realize what you've just talked about here? We've just received all your political views in one blow. I'm teasing. I'm not putting it down, honestly.
I don't think my political views are very controversial. Who likes nuclear warfare?
I remember her having the Wall Street Journal in her bag one time in the 70s when she was dating Jerry, and I went, you know, I thought she was really smart, but she's really well-read and very, very up on a lot of different things. She's as wide-ranging in her critical intellectual pursuits as she is in her musical pursuits, and you don't find that kind of depth and eclecticism in pop music.
Jerry needed somebody that could be full-time there for him. You couldn't have 2 careers in that family.
I never will marry.
There's not enough time.
I'll be no man's wife. I intend to stay single for the rest of my life.
Probably the same reason I never got married. I don't know, I think it's hard being a woman in the music business. You know, it's a different kind of life.
Deep waters swim over my head.
Well, you don't need to get married, you know what I mean? It's like we have our own income, and you don't have to have the state verify that you love somebody, and when that relationship's over, you leave.
Neither one of us are really made for marriage or, I think, long-term relationships.
So why did you break up?
Can't remember. Maybe she could tell you.
My mom wanted to be a scientist, but she had 4 kids, and I think that it was always a little bit of a disappointment. She always said to me, go out and have a life, you know, you don't just have to get married, there are alternatives. I have to confess, I got a really bad crush on this guy. We had a little romance for a while, but it wasn't long-lived. He dumped me for this pig.
Well, at least I got his picture.
Does he love me? I want to know. How can I tell if he loves me so? Is it in his eyes? Oh, no, you make believe. Is it in his eyes? Oh, no, you be deceived if you want to know if he loves you so. It's in his kiss. That's where it is.
To present the nominees for favorite female in rock and pop are Teddy Pendergrass and Tanya Taka.
The nominees are
Linda Ronstadt,
Miss Barbara Streisand,
and Donna Summer. And you open over there. I'm too nervous.
I'll do the gentlemanly thing here and I'll open it, if you will read.
Okay, and the winner is Linda Ronstadt.
Linda was the queen. She was like what Beyonce is now.
She was the first female rock and roll star.
She was the only female artist to have 5 platinum albums in a row, and most of them multi-platinum.
For favorite female in rock and pop,
favorite country single, Blue Bayou by Linda Ronstadt.
And the winner is, hasten down the winner, Linda Ronstadt.
The winner is Linda Ronstadt.
You make a fuss when her eyes ain't on you. Give us something to look forward to. Remember all those other girls you ran.
The nature of being a pop musician is that you get these things that are successful and you have to sing them for the rest of your life. Over and over and over again, they start sounding like your washing machine. I didn't like singing in the big arenas because the sound was like, you know, you'd hear the guitar solo that they played last week still ringing around the rafters. So I started looking for other things to do.
There is this feeling that she has about the music itself rather than the career itself. You know, some people are just hardcore careerists. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's how your mind works that makes the difference. It's how you see yourself or how you see yourself in the world, you know. And not everybody's a pure art for art's sake, and not everybody's a pure careerist either, especially in music, because musicians love music or they wouldn't do it.
She wanted to change. She got tired of doing arena rock. She wanted to try different things.
I picked up the phone and called my great friend John Rockwell, who writes music criticism for the New York Times. I said, I hate playing these big sporting arenas. It's not good for the audience. It's not good for the band. I want to sing in a theater with a proscenium and a curtain. He said, well, the next time you come to New York, I'll take you down to meet this fellow named Joseph Papp. He has a theater called the New York Public Theater, and he does Shakespeare, and he does musicals. He did Hair. He wanted to do the Pirates of Penzance. My mom was a Gilbert and Sullivan lover. She had a big book of Gilbert and Sullivan songs on the piano. And I actually learned all the soprano parts as a kid. And I loved singing them. But I never got a chance to in rock and roll.
That was in her roots. That was in her upbringing. It was part of her authentic musical experience.
Joe called me and said if I wanted to do the part, I could have it. And I said, no, I have to come and audition, because I didn't know whether I could sing it or not.
She wanted to be certain that she would do it well. They thought that being able to say Linda Ronstadt's in it would be good for business. But her concern was, well, it would be good for the show.
I was there for several rehearsals, and she was fabulous. She just grabbed it by the horns and...
That was the first job I was ever offered where I actually got to sing like that. I was delighted, I really was. But I can't do it very well yet, because it's really hard. You can't learn that overnight.
You gotta be in training.
In training, yep.
Linda had a great voice, and she had a great vision for herself, and she didn't want to just be singing rock and roll. She wanted to do everything.
Hold monsters, ere your pirate caravanserai proceed against our will to wed us all. Just bear in mind that we are wards in chancery, and father's a major general.
I knew some of her songs, sure, but operetta?
Prepare, unhappy General Stanley.
A week into rehearsal, we all sang through the score, just sitting in a circle on chairs. And when I heard her voice, it was just this bel canto, soprano, gorgeous, musical, celestial yet earthy, just pure. It was something so pure, it just made me cry. I just remember just listening to that voice. It was just singing that stuff. Touching.
Oh, sisters deaf to pity's name, for shame. It's true that he has gone astray, but pray, is that a reason good and true? Why you should all be deaf to pity's name.
Gilbert and Sullivan? Really? A rock star who has the guts to go out there and do that kind of musical comedy. She just didn't care. To her, it was like a mountain to climb.
Linda can bring herself to sing anything. She could sing opera. She could do anything with her voice. I couldn't do all that.
Kevin Kline and I were both nominated for Tony Awards for that show. Kevin deserved it more than I did. All I did was walk around and sing. My mom died during Pirates of Penzance.
I wasn't with her when she died, and I just couldn't quite get it through my head that she was gone out of the world and I was never going to see her again.
She had all these records, Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Peggy Lee. And I thought, I'd like to try to sing some of those songs.
When we lived together, almost every evening, the last record we listened to was a Frank Sinatra album called Songs for Only the Lonely, with Nelson Riddle arranging.
Constantly, people were telling Linda, you can't do this. I'm guilty. When she was going to do the Nelson Riddle album, I didn't think it was a good idea, not because she couldn't do it, but because we had this run going with rock and roll records and country rock.
I said, I'd like to find somebody that can write arrangements like Nelson Riddle. He said, why don't you just ask Nelson Riddle? Well, I didn't know he was still alive.
You were the only person that I knew that could do orchestrations like this. I didn't know where you were, whether you'd be interested in working with me, whether you'd ever heard of me or not. And as soon as I started learning the songs, they just got inside me. I wanted to record them, and I wanted to do it worse than anything I've ever wanted to do.
I remember your phrase for this. You said, these are songs I cannot not do.
I can't not do them. I mean, at some point, it's like falling in love. You know, it's choice doesn't even enter into it.
What's new? treating you.
I would think, well, my God, how can I sing these songs? Ella Fitzgerald has sung them, Billie Holiday has sung them, Frank Sinatra has sung them.
Handsome as ever.
She studied all of those records, and she studied every available version she could find of each one of those songs. She is a real student.
What's new? How did that romance come through?
She told me she wanted to get those songs out of the elevator, by which she meant that that's the only place you heard them. And she wanted to point out that that's not where they belonged. They were some of the best songs ever written.
What's new?
I went to her house and tried to talk her out of it, but as soon as she told me Nelson Riddle was going to do it, I said, well, I'd like to come to the record session.
When my sister was in high school, she got to go to her senior prom. She got to wear these strapless dresses with a lot of tulle, and I always wanted one of those dresses. But by the time I got to high school, styles had changed and I never got to have one. So I said, I'm going to put a show together. We're all going to get to wear those dresses.
So dream, dream.
This is a real treat tonight. We have three marvelous singers on the show, and would you know how many times they have been nominated for Grammys between them? 45 times a total. Wow. And the albums they've all sold are in the multi-millions, and I guess it's taken the ladies about 10 years to get this together, where they wanted to work together, and made an album called Trio, and it was well worth the time. The album is described as old-timey, but it's sensational. Would you welcome Linda Ronstadt, Dolly Parton, Emmylou Harris.
I'd met Dolly. I saw her singing on the Grand Ole Opry, and she was a wonder to behold. I mean, what you have in front of you is one of the most beautiful girls you've ever seen. You know, she's just gorgeous. When she opened her mouth and started to sing, I fell on the floor. She's an amazing singer.
Jolene, 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 I'm begging of you, please don't take my man.
I told Emmylou about her, and then Emmy met her somehow.
When I made my first trip to Nashville, the powers that be set up a meeting with Dolly, and she was making a record in her studio, and it was like unbelievable. It was better than any Disneyland visit.
They kind of found my music somewhere and kind of wanted to meet me, and that's kind of how we all started.
Emmy called me up. She said, Dolly Parton's at my house. You have to come over. I was living like 40 minutes away, and I got there in 20 minutes.
She came over, and there we were, the three of us, and we were there with our idol, Dolly.
And they had this big old house, almost like a bunch of hippies, just living up there, you know, different people, the musicians. They had different bedrooms. It was just a free-for-all kind of house, a dream for musicians.
And somebody said, well, sing something.
Bury me beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree, so he may know where I am sleeping, and perhaps he'll weep for me.
So I started singing that, and then they started saying, sing that again. And I go, oh, bury me. And here come all these harmonies, and oh, it was just chilling, chilling, chilling.
Beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree, where he may know where I am sleeping, and perhaps he'll weep for me.
When we heard our voices, it was like injecting some kind of serum into your veins. It was like a high like you've never felt.
We sang first in a living room and said, well, this sounds really good.
It was special. It was different.
It was special.
Together.
It was like a sister, a sound of sisters, musical sisters.
Won't you bury me beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree, where he may know.
At that moment, we thought we have to do a record.
To know
learn so much about singing from each other because you get to sort of be them for a second when you're shadowing them in a harmony. And you get to have like it's like getting on an eagle and getting to see the world from through that eagle's experience. You know, I get to sing through Dolly's voice or sing through Emmy's voice when I sing real close harmony.
The only big disagreements would be, are we going to use auto harp or dulcimer on this song?
Yeah. Sometimes we would disagree about who would sing lead, because Emmy and I always wanted Dolly to sing lead on everything. You know, we go, oh, well, Dolly will sound great on that, you know. Like, you sing lead, no, you sing lead.
Linda is such a perfectionist. She's a pain in the ass sometimes because she is such a perfectionist, because she will not have it unless it's perfect. She used to make me sing those harmonies over and over and over, and I said, I'm going to sing it the same way, no matter what. No, you're not. You're going to hit this one note. And see, I don't know how to, all those intricate harmonies like Emmylou and Linda do. I just sing that raw stuff from feeling, and it ain't always proper, but it sounds good.
It's just to know is to love, 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 and I do.
Linda, you've sung just about all types of music, light opera, you've been on Broadway, rock and roll, pop. What's your next project going to be?
I'm going to do an album of Mexican music, of traditional Mexican music. I'm kind of a traditional Mexican myself. You know, I grew up about 40 minutes from the Mexican border. My family are Mexican, and that is my roots. That's what I came from. And I have been dying to do this record for years and years, and I'm getting around to it this year. Boy, I'm going to do it.
Intensa nostalgia invade mi pensamiento.
Our neighbor that lived behind us in the garage apartment was Harry Dean Stanton, great character actor, and a great singer of Mexican folk songs. We would hear him up till the wee hours singing these Mexican folk songs, these canciones. And Linda knew all those songs.
I don't think people thought of her as Mexican. It certainly never came up. I never heard it.
I mean, the name Ronstadt is not Hernandez. Ronstadt is a German-sounding name. No, she's certainly from Mexican heritage, but it wasn't the most apparent thing.
You know what?
I want to see where you put your D. Say ganador.
It's the phrase ganador, 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 do.
Is it up on the roof of your mouth, the back of your teeth? When he asked me if I would sing a harmony on his record, I was completely delighted, because you can only learn by doing. You know, I can't. There isn't a book you can get. You know, say, how do you learn how to be a singer in Spanish? And it's always been a dream of mine to make an album of these Mexican songs that I learned from my father.
My father had a beautiful baritone voice. He sounded like a cross between Pedro Infante and Frank Sinatra. Always, you know, if there was a dinner party or something, he'd get the guitar out and then he'd just sing, and then I always would fall asleep in somebody's lap listening to my dad sing some beautiful song.
We always, as a family, we always sang in Spanish, even though I didn't understand much of what I was singing. It was something that I learned to do. It's kind of like lip reading, you know. I used to kind of chameleon in harmony along with my father.
Así prolongan el final.
To learn to sing that style as a grown-up professional singer, that took some doing.
Su triste juego del amor, donde el silencio es Sí, vamos.
I always forget the beginning when I go through the ending.
Fight,
and it
fight,
makes it
fight,
so
fight,
hard.
fight.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, was it this way? Is that how you do it? The Latin way. Okay, I
Vaya.
got it.
Sí, ya está, olvídate.
Okay, I'm learning all these new things.
My dad invited me to go to the Tucson Mariachi Conference, and that way I got to meet the Mariachi Vargas. Those good bands like the Cobre or the Camperos or the Mariachi Vargas, you're going to go to a symphony and you're not going to find better musicians. They're all virtuoso players. I picked a couple of songs. The band said, these songs are very traditional and they're very difficult to do. I said, well, it's the only songs I know, so we better learn them.
I went to the president of my record company, who's a man who genuinely likes music. And I said, look, I've made all these records for you. They've sold this. I'm going to do this just for me. You know, and this might be self-indulgent. If it sells 2 copies, I don't care. But if I can't record this music, I'm going to die.
I don't understand any Spanish. I didn't understand how popular those songs were. But this is a lady who wanted to do it her way, and who was going to say no? Yeah.
La fiesta charra, fiesta del sol. No, de los charros valientes dan con sus cantos la evocación. El caripeo su festejo que huele a surco y a tradición.
Canciones de mi Padre. It's the largest selling Spanish language album in the history of the industry. That's the whole Linda Ronstadt story right there in a nutshell. Linda deciding she wants to do something. The record company telling her she can't. She goes ahead and does it anyway, and they jump on board as the thing starts to take off.
Toda la familia would come, and they loved it because they were here from Mexico. Even though their kids had grown up here and become American citizens, who is this girl singing songs so beautifully?
The fact that she went on and did that and did it in such a big way, that was a brave thing to do. Many people would have been terrified, I'll mess up my career, you know. But obviously she had purpose. Personal decision. It's good.
Que huele a surco y a tradición, revela la faena más admirada de mi nación. Bonito ser caripeo y cuando su animación, yo quiero montar un toro para que me mire mi amor. Upaliu, paliu, upaliu, paliu. Yo quiero montar un toro para que me mire mi amor. Ay, ay, ay.
To have that traditionalism going along on the bus with me from town to town, where I'd only sung pop music, to take that part of the dirt with me, you know, the part of the soil of the land where I came from, to Cleveland and Cincinnati and New York. That was a thrill. You should have seen Central Park with, you know, close to 1 million people in it. When the mariachi got up on stage with their big hats, the place fell out. They went nuts. You know, there was such a thing of pride that went from the stage to the audience. It was just great.
This song was written by me and my father, and it's called Lo Siento Mi Vida.
Lo siento mi vida.
My dad died when he was 84. There was a kind of a peace that happened when he died. In the 3 or 4 days before he died, he was reading to us passages from Gabriel Garcia Marquez's book, Love in the Time of Cholera. And it was just a great sharing. It was a different experience being with my father when he died than it was with my mother. I knew I was going to miss him, but I accepted it better.
Siempre
He had what I would describe as a beautiful death.
I've seen her on TV, and I thought she was great. But when she came to New Orleans, she was just so down to earth and, you know, girl next door thing, you know, and just humble. She was just a sweet, humble person.
I'd been in New Orleans for the World's Fair, and somebody said, well, the Neville Brothers are playing at some club down in the quarter. We should go.
We're going to get serious right now. I'm going to turn you on to our brother Aaron Neville.
Aaron Neville was on stage singing this beautiful song, Ariane.
Ariane, with the morning that comes rippling through my window. She's a smell of coffee brewing on a quiet and rainy Sunday.
Somebody told me she was in the audience, so I called up on stage, sing some doo-wop.
Usually I'll never do anything like that because I like to rehearse everything first. But I wasn't going to say no to Aaron Neville.
After that, I asked for an autograph. She said, to Aaron, love, I'll sing with you anytime, any place, anywhere, in any key.
Look at this face.
The next morning I woke up and my first thought was, boy, I like singing with Aaron Neville. That sounded pretty good. And then I thought, you idiot, everybody sounds good when they're singing with Aaron Neville.
Still don't know where it's going.
I said, we got to make a record together. And he was up for it.
I don't know much, but I know I love you. And that may be all I need to know.
They had all kind of rumors going on that one time. They said, oh, Linda and Aaron got married or whatever, and it was crazy stuff.
Look at these dreams, so big and so better.
I don't know much.
The producer told us, if you don't make it look real, there ain't no sense doing it. So, you know, you had to make it look real.
That may be all there is to know.
At the studio, I said, see you at the Grammys.
I had a speech, amana. Too nervous. I just want to say thank you to Linda first, and my wife Joelle.
Aaron and I won 2 Grammys for that record. But as time went on, there was something really wrong with my voice. I just lost a lot of different colors in my voice. There's a lot of things you do in singing. You turn your voice to different planes to make different sounds, and I couldn't do any of that. Turned out I had Parkinson's disease. Singing is really complex, and I was made most aware of it by having it vanish. I can still sing in my mind, but I can't do it physically. I sang my last concert on November 7th, 2009. It was a Mexican show.
Must have been quite a reckoning to have this marvelous instrument that could always hold the notes, hit the notes, and shape the notes, could no longer hold the notes without quaver. But there's a lot of good records with her magnificent voice on them, and I hear her laughing in my head all the time. I hear that cackle all the time, so I'm sort of never without her.
I can imagine that not being able to sing for Linda is awful. But I also know of nobody who could handle that kind of change or adjustment in a more logical and thoughtful and intelligent way than Linda.
I don't think she misses going on the road. I don't think she misses making records. I think she misses singing with her friends and singing in the living room with her family. There's just no one on the planet that ever had or ever will have a voice like Linda's.
You know, I'm grateful for the time I had. I got to live a lot of my dreams, and I feel lucky about it. Another person with Parkinson's said that life after death isn't the question. It's life before death. So how are you going to do it? How are you going to live?
A la orilla de un palmar yo vi una joven bella, su boquita de coral, sus ojitos dos estrellas. Soy huérfano.
Gotta find a part there.
Start right there. Soy huérfanita.
I don't even have that note in my speaking range anymore.
You said before that you couldn't sing anymore.
This isn't really singing. Believe me, it's a few notes sketched in, but it's not really singing.
Are you enjoying it?
Well, I would enjoy it much more if I could sing, but I can't let them sing this without me. It's a family thing.
Shall we? Yeah. You guys ready?
Soy huérfanita. No tengo padre ni madre, ni un amigo hay que me venga a consolar. Solita paso la vida a la orilla de un mar y solita voy y vengo como las olas del mar.
Do we get to eat?
Yes.
Oh, good.
I've been cheated, been mistreated. When will I be loved? I've been put down, I've been pushed round. When will I be loved? When I find a new man Are you having fun? Is there someone to hold when you need it bad? Is it uncontrolled like the love we had?